Nolan King for MMA Junkie here in San Jose, California with the punk, Josh Thomson, who'll be calling Bellator 277 tomorrow night, which takes place right behind us here at the SAP Center. Josh, man, a big event, big feels this week, a big rematch between Patricio Pitbull and AJ McKee. You excited to be able to watch this one and to provide some analysis for us?
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to be different from the first fight. The speed was definitely evident in the first fight. The range was definitely evident. AJ needs to understand that this second fight may not happen that way. If he's going to put too much pressure on himself to have that same type of performance, will that drag over into the third and fourth round? If it ends up going into the third and fourth round, will that start wearing on his mind, going, hey, I got him out of here early the first time. How come it's not happening again? He's a young fighter, still has a lot to grow, but definitely one of the most dynamic fighters in the world, especially at that weight class at 145. Patricio, not much to really take away from the first fight. He got caught. This is the life that we chose, when it comes to the fighters. And then Patricio knows what he has to do. It's a matter of whether he can get it done or not. And this is his moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I know there's a lot of conversation right now about AJ McKee, and you fought at the highest levels in the UFC. Where do you think he stacks up? Do you feel like right now, at this point in time, he's got a big fight tomorrow, but best featherweight in the world?
Look, I think stylistically, when you're talking about the top, say 3 or 4 fighters in the world, okay, at that weight class, they all intermix and they all can beat anybody at any given day. I think AJ is a bad matchup for anybody. For sure, Max Holloway is a bad matchup for. Volkanovski is probably a little bit more of a tougher fight, not just because he's the champ, but just stylistically, the speed, the shortness, the wrestling, the gas tank. We haven't seen AJ go past 3 rounds because he hasn't had to. Now, will that translate against someone like Volkanovski in a 4th and 5th round? Okay, Patricio is up there as well. If I put Patricio in there along with Volkanovski, if I put him in there with Max Holloway, if I put him in there with whoever else they have in that top, division, they're bad matchups for each other. Any one of those fighters can beat each other on any given day, and that's really what it comes down to in that top 2 or 3 or 4 spots, across the board. And then even if you start looking over in one, they've got a couple good fighters as well, and look what's happened to DJ being over there and Eddie Alvarez not having the type of success that they had in other promotions. And so there's a lot to be said. Not one promotion has all the best fighters, and it's never going to be that way because of the situation. Now, we'd love to see cross promotion. We could sit here and talk about it all day, as you know, but I really believe that AJ is a bad matchup for anybody at that weight class.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair take. We see a lot of times MMA math doesn't really add up ever, so makes a lot of sense there. And then the co-main event, Vadim Nemkov versus Corey Anderson, the Grand Prix light heavyweight final. Did you think this would be the matchup? Like when this was announced, did you think this was a high likelihood that these two would be facing each other at the end?
You gotta remember, AJ was in there, Anthony Johnson was in there as well. Then you had Romero was supposed to be in, Yoel Romero was supposed to be in there as well. There was a lot of things that just happened. The tournament got kind of shaken up and turned upside down on his head. But at the end of the day, the 2 best fighters ended up in the finals, and that's what you want.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess from your vantage point, what do you think fans should expect to see out of this one? Do you feel like Corey Anderson, I think, is the favorite right now? Mm-hmm. Do you think that we see him walk away with the title? Do you feel like Vadim maybe is getting overlooked here because of the name recognition that Corey brings?
I think that we are going to see a dynamic fight. You're going to have Nemkov's going to have to try to keep this thing on the feet. He can't afford to stay on the bottom. If he does get taken down and start shooting some submissions, he's got to look to get himself back up to the feet. I think his way of winning this fight is by knockout. His way of winning this fight is chopping down the legs, slowing Corey Anderson down. If he can do that, I think he's going to have a successful title defense, I should say. But with Corey Anderson, there's no secret to what he's got to do. He's got to get the takedown. He's got to do some work on top. He's got to push this pace. Because if you go back in the history, even though I know Nemkov has matured as a fighter, he tends to slow down in that 4th and 5th round, even though he's the champion, even though he's fought at a fast pace. But when you look at that, Corey Anderson has the gas tank. He's always had the gas tank, and that's one thing he prides himself on, is his ability to push the pace and really just dial these guys down to the point where they just have no answer for him.
Yeah.
So if Corey can do that, he's going to have a successful night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, we know you as part of the oiled machine right now. We see you on the broadcast, but I feel like we never really take a step back for a little bit. I mean, how are you enjoying the broadcasting game? I know in 2020 when you stepped away from fighting, do you feel like that was the right time and this was a great career move for you, as difficult as it was to kind of stop competing?
It wasn't difficult at all to make the decision. I knew I couldn't fight at the highest level anymore. I've been fighting at the highest level my whole career, and it just wasn't for me anymore, and I knew that. I started slowing down. You just got to be honest with yourself. I think fighters have to start realizing when it's time to let it go, and that's probably a very difficult conversation for some of them, but for me it wasn't. I owned multiple gyms. I was focused on that as well, on top of being a fighter, and it just was time. I was like, you know what, I want to make my life go in a different direction. Bellator started using me for broadcasting. I fell in love with it, dedicated as much time to that as I did to fighting. I started doing my research, started looking into the fighters, started doing the podcast with Big John McCarthy, and things just grew, and now it's just become like, this is what I want to do. And so I've been blessed enough to work with someone like Scott Coker and Bellator, and they put me in a great position, and I'm happy.
Yeah, and talking about your podcast, obviously very successful. You guys do really great views there. Do you find it difficult at all? Because I think when you start giving out opinions that a lot of people listen to, there are sometimes, some of the fighters get aggravated. And with us, they can brush us off and say, oh, these guys have never stepped in there. But for somebody like you, they kind of have to go back and forth with you. We saw that with Aljamain Sterling recently. Is that something that you care about? Is it something that you enjoy, like from your fighting career, kind of the trash talk aspect? Or
no, I don't look at it that. I don't look at it that way at all. Look, Alja's going to be upset. He has a reason to be all up in his feelings, and he can do that, and that's fine. He has the right to say what he wants to say, just like I have the right to say what I want to say. The bottom line is my opinion is that he lost the first round. It was a close round, but my opinion was he lost the first round, which, you can say it any way you want. I also had him losing the fight, but it was a close fight, and I also said that, look, I thought Alja fought a great fight. I had him barely losing, and the fact that they gave him the decision, I didn't say anything else other than that. I actually think, I'm like, look, if you won the fight, I'm not arguing with it. It wasn't a robbery by any means. It wasn't like, that they robbed Jan of the title. No, the fight was close. Alja did some great work in the first round. But what people keep going back to is, and Big John will attest to this as well, is that, oh, he outstruck him. Yeah, look, if I land 20 jabs, but Jan landed 5 right hands that, sat you back on your heel a little bit, which one's more effective and which ones do the judges should the judges be looking at? And that's really like CompuStrike's numbers and CompuBox or whatever you want to call it, and significant strikes, that doesn't mean shit. Okay? I mean, it could be a bunch of little things. If I kick your leg, okay, versus head kicking you, what's the difference? Which one's better? Okay? I mean, if you landed 16 leg kicks but then I head kicked you, which one's better? I mean, that it really comes down to that. You have to really understand that it's not always about how many strikes you land, okay? And it's not always about, I found out several times, it's not always about controlling how much time you control the cage. And so, look, he fought a good fight. He got his feelings hurt when we didn't agree with the fact that he won the first round, and that was it. But I still thought he fought a great fight.
And obviously what you're saying right there is all technical, kind of your opinion. Do you feel like he made it too personal with his response last night?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, for sure. But that's the other thing, too, is, look, John and I are going to have our opinions, and this is what's going to happen. Rogan's talked about this as well. 50% of the time, they're going to love what you say. The other 50%, they're going to hate what you say. And if you go through the comments, you go through the Twitter feeds, 50% of people thought he lost the first round. The other 50% thought he won the first round. So why are we any different? And I just wanted to see him come in with the same type of energy that he did, against John. Why don't you go to that same energy with Dana White? Your boss said right after you lost that fight, John won the fight. I didn't hear a whole lot of conversation.
Fair enough. And being here in San Jose this week, I do want to ask you as well. We were at the court hearings for your teammate Cain Velasquez, and I know you're a guy that Cain has a lot of support here, but I think specifically you've been at everything. Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you kind of your thoughts on, what's going on and just how you're feeling about the whole thing.
I mean, there's not much that I think any of us can say because we're not in that position. It breaks my heart to see him have to go through this. I also think there's a lot of things that I think that the justice system failed his son in this situation. They failed him as a law-abiding citizen, and then he went out and took it into his own hands. And I think that's really where they're going to go with this. It's sad. It's really sad. But hopefully something happens that we can start remedying this situation nationwide, not just here locally. I mean, we can't be letting pedophiles out, sex offenders out, with no bail, and especially back to a daycare type setting where this guy lives. And so it's sad. It really is, but there's not much anyone else can do. All you can do is support him and be there for him and his wife and his kids and family and wish them all the best and just be there if they call. That's it. That's all we can do.
Yeah, I know this is a complex issue for everybody to kind of figure out. I mean, is there anything that you're kind of hoping is the ends of this thing? Like, is there anything that the Free Cain movement, like, is there anything that you guys just hope at the end of the day comes out of this? Obviously unfortunate regardless.
Well, I'm hoping that the laws change. I'm hoping that they stop allowing sex offenders out. I'm hoping that they stop allowing them to be released with no bail. I'm hoping that the state does something to take that into consideration and start changing that. Outside of that, I really don't know. I mean, look, the bottom line is that he's going to try to get there'll probably be some sort of plea. They're trying to probably get him to plea because there has to be some sort of repercussions for what he did. But if it goes all the way to court, the outcome could not go in his favor also. So there's a lot to be discussed, and he's in a really bad position, when it comes to making sure that his family can continue to be taken care of. And what's he going to do? Is he going to see his kids grow up? Do you take it all the way to court? Do you plea out and hopefully get out sooner? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anyone does.
And let's leave it with this, for people that might not know Cain Velasquez. I know he wasn't like the biggest fan of being in the spotlight. He was always kind of quiet. What kind of person was he to you as somebody that trained with him and as a friend? He's
a great person, very quiet, keeps to himself, but his energy is infectious. The way people don't realize, like, just because you're quiet, you don't have to be the center of attention. The personality, though, was amazing. Like, he could make you laugh, the things he would say, and especially when you know him and you see how big of a teddy bear he is, and he doesn't look the part, though. He doesn't look like he's a soft, well-spoken, person. He's got the brown pride tattoo. He's got the shaved head. He's all-American wrestler. I mean, like, what are you gonna say? People, if I can sit here and tell you all the great things about him, but it would take a while.
Josh, really appreciate the time.
Yeah, brother, thank you. Thanks for having me.